Hello. So today we're going to be talking about grade inflation, specifically how that plays a role in college admission processes and the distribution of academic scholarships. This is Mark Huntsman. He's the chairman on the Utah State Board of Education and also the audience that this paper was originally written for. The problem of grade inflation should be a concern for Mark Huntsman and the board because grade inflation is a big deal in every stage of education and has far-reaching negative effects. This issue is made real as the impacts of grade inflation happen on an individual level. The effects are personal to each student, which is why it's necessary to bring this issue up to the Board of Education. Grade inflation has a really profound impact on not only the student body of a college, but the admissions process itself and the distribution of academic scholarships. And this is because of GPA and how much it's emphasized, especially in high school, because of how it is later used in college admissions processes and applying for scholarships. Colleges have taken note of the fact that GPA and grade inflation is providing inaccurate transcripts that don't give the true measure of a student. And part of this reason is because of the individual inflation on a class level. So Maureen Downey, she shares an example of how GPA so overly emphasizes for college students who received academic scholarships that are based on largely on their GPA and standardized testing scores. So the Hope Scholarship is one of these that they offer in Georgia, and it's given to students who have demonstrated academic excellence and which is again shown by their GPA. Administration soon realized that students who were awarded the Hope Scholarship and were also enrolled in STEM-based majors or courses, began to lose their scholarships because they were not able to maintain such a high GPA in these courses. So they created House Bill 801, which is basically just a bill that adds another 0.5 grade points onto their GPA when they take a STEM course. This is clear evidence of grade inflation in the way that students who originally received an A in the class were not being benefited the same way that students who received lower grades were. Because of this, transcripts of those students that were benefiting from House Bill 801 were not as accurate as they could have been. In this example of grade inflation affecting the maintenance of academic scholarships, it's clear to see that one reason of this is because of sympathetic teachers. Both Harding and Castellaspi mention in their articles the impact that teachers have on grade inflation. Oftentimes, teachers will want to help out their students who they know need to either raise or maintain their GPA in order to qualify for financial aid, and this is a huge reason why there is so much grade inflation in GPA, and that is because of sympathetic teachers. The Hope Scholarship discussed by Downey is a good example of grade inflation on a college level, but it happens just the same in high school. GPA is extremely inflated. This creates a huge task for college admittance officers to differentiate between students who truly achieved academic excellence in high school versus those who are just benefiting from an inflated grade. In an article called How High School Grade Inflation Affects Admissions and Recruitment, it's discussed how Florida State University has managed to reform their admissions process. What they did is actually they managed to standardize their applicants' GPAs along with accounting for their environmental conditions using a tool created by the College Board. This allowed them to get a better picture of each student, something that was more well-rounded and accounted for their environmental conditions, which is a measure that's not easily inflated. Another significant measure that colleges use to determine who will make up their student body and who will qualify for academic scholarships is a standardized test score. However, in an article called Standardized Tests Not Indicator of Success, students from Penn State University were interviewed and it was found that they felt that their standardized testing score did not give an accurate representation of them as a student, their work ethic, or their competence. Florida State University reformed their admittance process in order to combat grade inflation and the effects that it had. But other places did this too, just not quite in the same way. In an article by Mark Oppenheimer, he discussed one university's approach to combating grade inflation. The university, instead of using letter grades as tradition, created in-depth portfolios for each student that was comprised of notes and comments and letters from teachers that gave a better, more accurate representation of the kind of student that they were and their work ethic and what they were capable of. Oppenheimer discussed that these reformations that universities underwent to combat grade inflation work. This goes to show that grade inflation is in fact a problem because so many different colleges and universities are trying their very best in order to reform their processes so the decisions that they make are not solely based off of an inflated grade. Class choice is another method that grade inflation uses to impact the college admittance process and scholarship distribution. David Castellaspi sums up the way that class choice allows for different levels of grade inflation when he introduces two different teachers. One teacher, Miss Cupcake, is known for being an easy grader, somebody whose class is easy to get an A in, versus another teacher teaching the same subject that is a lot more difficult to get a higher grade in that class because they are known for being a strict teacher. Obviously, a student would choose Miss Cupcake over the stricter teacher in order to help out their grades and their transcript to give them a better chance at succeeding and going to the college of their choice with as much financial aid as they are able to qualify for. Kieran and Markovich refer to this choice between classes as a choice between ability revealing classes and ability concealing classes. Ability revealing classes are those that students with high ability are able to succeed in, whereas students with low ability are the ones that are getting the lower grades. They're getting the grades that accurately represent their work and their ability. The concealing classes are those that both high ability and low ability students both succeed in, because it disguises the fact that the low ability students have a lower competence level than the high ability students, because they're all awarded high grades. This contributes to the issues caused by grade inflation in college admittance processes because students are able to strategize and almost use the system to benefit their transcript the best. Kieran and Markovich created a model that displays how students strategize the classes that they pick, specifically for motives related to scholarship distribution and college acceptance. McSpirit and Jones also touched on the fact that being able to drop classes allows for students to strategize more and adds to grade inflation because they can determine which classes will benefit their grades more or less. In a study done by ACT, in order to prove that grade inflation was in fact happening, they measured average high school GPA against ACT composite score, which they were using as a constant. This supports the argument that standardized test scores are equally as important as GPA in the college admittance process because they are uninflated. However, Room 214 team discussed that these tests are often too simplistic and they don't give accurate representations of a student. Furthermore, after the initial awarding of a financial aid scholarship, GPA is the only measure that's used. Standardized testing scores aren't still used to determine whether a student can maintain their scholarship or not. In Downey's article about the Hope Scholarship, this is exactly what was happening. Students were required to maintain a GPA, not to keep a test score. For many students, two huge accomplishments in their education is being accepted into a college that they've always wanted to go to, and also qualifying for an academically merited scholarship. Unfortunately, grade inflation has a diminishing effect on these accomplishments because, in the end, they're just based off of inflated measures. The problems caused by grade inflation in college admission processes are evident in the emphasis placed on GPA, efforts made by universities to reduce the effects of grade inflation, and students strategically choosing classes to inflate their grades. In case any of this was of any interest to you, here are a few sources where some more information can be found. Thanks for listening.